People really seem to enjoy the last few times I did a little bit of a story time. I told the one about LDZ and Dash, the interesting fan interaction in the bathroom, and then most recently, when I may or may not have stolen 10 Minecraft accounts. So here it is again, a little bit of a story. Sit back, relax. This is gonna be a more cozy video. Grab a cup of coffee, a cup of Joe, grab your friend Joe, and yeah, let's go. So this story picks up loosely from where the Minecraft account one ended, but you don't need to know what happened. All that you need to know is that I am transferring schools from 5th to 6th grade. So in 5th grade I was in my old school, and this story takes place in 6th grade in the new one. In this new school, oh yeah, by the way, if you're not American, if you're from the EU or another place that isn't real, then that is 11 years old. I'm 11 years old. Something to know is that this new school is both significantly larger and significantly more difficult than my old one. I was struggling academically. It was very hard. It was pretty rough. It was pretty difficult for 11-year-old me. I remember getting my first C and it being devastating because I was not used to that. I was used to excelling, being one of the high scorers or whatever you want to call it, and now I am, not doing too hot. With all that stress built up, I kind of needed an outlet. And for a little kid, what's going to be the outlet? It's going to be just running around, going hyper mode, going crazy mode. So I found it in dodgeball. I mean, if you want to go hyper crazy mode, that's a good way to do it. And this school, next to the cafeteria, there was this concrete trapezoidal-ish court type thing that people played dodgeball every day. And for me, that place was an oasis. Instead of eating lunch in the cafeteria, I would take my food, dodgeball court. Homework, dodgeball court. No. Studying, dodgeball court. If there was a substitute teacher, or like if the teacher was sick or something, class was canceled, or we get let out early, dodgeball court. Every day I was there because it was like a safe haven. I didn't have to worry about my problems or struggling academically. I didn't have to worry about disappointing people. I could just play some dodgeball. And dodgeball was already something I liked. It's kind of quick, dumb fun. You can just pick it up with your friends, or you can make some friends, and all that. But on this court, in 6th grade, it was more than that. Dodgeball wasn't just fun. It was cool. Because this school, like I mentioned, was significantly larger. And not only was it significantly larger, but the demographics were very different. So in my old school, I was one of just 3 Asian Americans in the entire grade. In this new one, Asian Americans made up the second biggest demographic of students in the entire school. So it was a huge change, and you saw it on the dodgeball court. The first time I was there, I noticed, hey, this is interesting. The 2 teams on opposite sides, it's Asians versus everyone else. Asians versus non-Asians. And at first, I guess I kind of assumed that the reason why was just because there were a lot of Asian Americans at the school, or just because the non-Asian American kids wanted to separate like that. But I quickly realized that no, it's not because the non-Asians just did that. It's because the Asian Americans ruled the dodgeball court. They almost never lost. And the 8th graders in particular, again, if you're not American, this is middle school, so middle school is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So me being the youngest person there, or the youngest, grade there, you're playing with people that are 2-3 years older than you, which at that age, when you're 11, that is a huge deal. That's like 5 years for every 1 year, because you're growing a lot. So some of these kids were like 6 feet tall, and I am probably like 5'3" or something. So yeah, the Asian American kids were really good. And it was pretty cool because, typically, casually racist jokes against Asians, it's like, oh, you're smart, you're good at math, but very rarely do you see kind of a deep level of respect. And that's kind of what happened on that dodgeball court, because everyone knew those kids were the best, and there was that level of respect for their skill. We played, okay, this is a kind of side note, but we played with the, if you know, those big bouncy yellow dodgeballs, which are the absolute best. I say dodgeballs, I should say dodgeball. We had 1, and if we lost it, it was really bad because we had 1. So sometimes it would bounce off the wall in a weird way, or bounce off the fence, I should say, in a weird way, and go into the street, or go into a parking lot. And that was very scary, because that was like, we don't want to lose our 1 ball. Also, we've set off a few car alarms in our day. I shouldn't be admitting this. Anyway, the point is that they were really good, and they had this moniker for themselves. The Asian Alliance. That's what they called themselves. And they were really cool. And everyone wants to be on their team. Because who does not want to be on the winning team? They won almost every single game and every single day. And so when teams were organized, oh yeah, also I probably should have mentioned this. This is one of the most frequently frequently asked questions I get. It's about my ethnicity. I'm half Korean, so I'm half Asian, half white. And so when deciding what team to play for, it's kind of uncomfortable. Who do I play for? I have to choose. Either I play for the Asian team, or I play for the non-Asian team. And this is something that, you know, mixed people tend to struggle with their identity. You would think like, oh, you have twice as much, or you relate to two different cultures, so you'd have like twice as much confidence in your identity, but it's kind of the opposite. You kind of don't really feel like you belong to either. And so this was kind of an outward or external representation of that very idea. Who do I choose? Do I choose Asian? Do I choose non-Asian? Even though like I'm equally both, I had to pick. And so, I mean, obviously I chose the Asian Alliance. They win every game. You know, I'm 11 years old. I'm not gonna pick the losing team. What, am I dumb? Am I stupid brain? So I picked the winning team, and yeah, they were cool. They were the cool kids. You want to be cool with the cool kids. So on that court, it didn't matter that I was just as much Asian as I was white. I was just on the good team. That's what it felt like, at least at the start. And they were good. You know, basically my game plan was I'd pick up the ball, feed it to a tall 8th grader, and they would just laser it to the other side of the court. They would get someone out, or they would throw it so fast that it bounced off the wall and then came back to us anyway. So I basically never had to do anything. You know, I could just eat my spaghetti on the court, and, you know, the meatballs would never fly out of the plate because we were never in danger. The 8th graders were just so good, dude. They would throw it and it would be like, bada bing, one person out. Throw it again, bada boom, another person out. And then one of their best players, the non-Asian team's best players, they would like laser it over because, you know, they weren't bad. It was just a skill gap, a little bit of skill gap, you know. So they would throw it over, they would laser it over, and you know that sound that a dodgeball makes when you catch it and the spin just immediately dies. It's like shoo. It's one of the most satisfying sounds ever, and that would happen so consistently. Their best player would throw it. One of our 8th grader kids would catch it immediately, get them out. That's the game. And that's pretty much how almost every game went. Get their best player out, laser a bunch of balls, pretty much never get in danger of losing. That's some good fun right there. So this went on for a few days, into a few weeks, into a couple months. And if you're familiar with the US schooling system, or the way that it's generally set up, is you start school in August or September. So by this point, it's probably November, maybe early December. You know, you start seeing your breath in the wind a little bit. Your hands start getting a little numb. The leaves are starting to fall, starting to deteriorate, disintegrate into the ground. And for me, it's just another day. I get my lunch. I get my Dr. Pepper in one hand. I used to drink soda a lot. I don't drink soda anymore because that's, you know, no good. No, bad. But I used to, so I had a pepperoni pizza in one hand, Dr. Pepper in another, and I dashed out of the cafeteria like any other day. At this point, I'd perfected the route to miss as little of the games as possible, pretty much locked in that speed. I was going crazy. I hopped down those stone steps to get to the dodgeball court. My usual commute, it was fine-tuned, and I arrived thinking that I was going to hear the balls bouncing, the shoo of the catching, but to my surprise, the games hadn't started yet. And instead, the usual suspects, they were arguing. And so I asked one of the 8th graders, like, hey, what's going on? And by the way, no big deal. Kind of cool with 8th graders. Could kind of just ask them what's going on. No big deal. Just saying, kind of a king of the social interaction of this one person because of the dodgeball court. Anyway, I just bumped my mic by accident. Sorry. So I was like, okay, what's going on? What's the big deal? Why aren't we playing? And the 8th grader told me, he's like, oh, this one kid, we'll call him Bobby. He's like, Bobby wants to join the Asian Alliance, and he keeps telling us that he's a quarter Japanese and that he deserves to be on the Asian Alliance. And clearly, this 8th grader was not amused. He was not buying it at all. Nobody was really buying it. Bobby, he was kind of like me. He was a 6th grader. He was kind of small, a little bit scrawny. He obviously just wanted to play on the winning team, which is pretty much what everyone wants. I mean, nobody wants to lose, especially when you're like a little kid, you know? Especially when this school is hard and you feel like you can't win anything, and the only way to win is to play some dodgeball. Of course you'd want to win. But we didn't let him on. The Asian Alliance denied him. And I remember feeling torn, because in some ways, Bobby wanted to be Asian on that court for the same reason that I did. He just wanted to win some games, have some fun, be cool with the cool kids, and the only thing separating me and him was my birthright to the winning team. But, you know, I didn't stand up for him. None of the Asian Americans even considered letting him in. But for some reason, I was an auto pick. And I just felt like, you know, for a team that celebrated diversity, ironically, being exclusionary was a necessity. And, you know, I never even questioned it because I benefit from it. So why should I question it? But ultimately that day, Bobby, he wasn't allowed in the alliance, but the whole disturbance uncovered these deep-seated feelings. This aggravation bubbled to the surface among the regulars because, you know, the non-Asians were tired of losing and they wanted to mix up the teams and not have this, you know, us versus them, this kind of scenario. And the Asian Americans, the Asian alliance, they wanted to maintain the status quo because they kept winning. And neither side would budge until many of the non-Asians threatened to say, we're not coming back. We're not going to play. You know, you guys, you can just play amongst yourselves. If you're not going to let us on your team, we're just going to leave. And so they had to make a compromise. Everyone had to make a compromise. We started a schoolyard draft that day, which is the first time we did that in so long. It's been like months and we haven't done a schoolyard draft. If you don't know schoolyard draft, it's basically you get 2 captains, one person picks the first person, and then you alternate 2 people each per captain. So one of the best 8th graders, the tall 8th grader, the guy that I always feed balls to, he's one captain. He picks one of the other tall 8th graders, and the other captain was the best player on the non-Asian team, and he breaks everything. You know, I feel like it sounds like I'm accusing him. No. It breaks the status quo because he picks one of the Asian Americans, a member of the Asian Alliance, and people got a little bit mad. They got a little bit pissy-wissy about it, but it is what it is. And for the first time that year, the alliance was broken. And for the first time in the year, I was on the losing team. My half Korean blood couldn't save me. You know, I chose to be Asian on that court between my 2 identities, but that afternoon, it didn't matter. When one of the 8th grade Asians lasered me in the chest, it wasn't friendly fire, because I was on the other side. But the next day, you know, I don't think I had a Dr. Pepper or pepperoni pizza that day, but you know, I don't remember what I had for lunch. But the next day, same route, same lunch. I come rushing to the court, my fine-tuned route, and I hear, pew, pew. Game started, the alliance is back. Because they just decided those last games were stupid. And what could the other kids do, you know? It was equal in number. They didn't want to leave. They were just bluffing. Like, nobody wants to just quit playing dodgeball because dodgeball is fun. It's cool. It's our escape. And me, I was happy because I got to be Asian again. It was a way for me to belong because there's no place for me in that court. You know, I'm caught between 2 checkboxes and I couldn't really fit in either. But maybe I could be at least a little bit happy in one, you know? But end of the day, that Bobby incident, it made me realize, like, am I really satisfied with this? Was I being true to myself? And it's hard to say, right? Because the way that the system was set up, the Asians versus the non-Asians, you know, I had to choose. So I did. I chose. I chose to fit in wherever I could in a system, in a game that wasn't made for me. And you would think that, you know, I would actually be happier because I could be represented on both sides, you know? Representation, you would think, like, logically, that people who are mixed, you would feel represented twice as much. But in fact, it's the opposite. It's like, when I see someone that's white, I don't really truly feel represented. When I see someone that's Asian, I don't really truly feel represented. Because it's not really me. You know, I don't really see me. That's actually, this is a question I got in the past, like an actor I really like. I really like Keanu Reeves. Partly because he's not like a dweeb. He's not typecast as just a dweeb. He's kind of a badass, actually. He's Neo, he's John Wick, but he's mixed like me. And he's not just computer geek because he's part Asian. So, the next year, this is jumping ahead a little bit. The 8th graders move on to high school. They no longer frequent the dodgeball court. And almost overnight, the Asian Alliance vanishes. It's almost like it was never there. And where could I belong now? Well, I guess I had to just figure it out again. Hopefully this time where I could be proud of both sides of myself instead of denouncing one to celebrate the other. So that's the story of the Dodgeball Court, of the Asian Alliance, of the laser dodgeballs. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you want more stories, because sometimes I like telling stories, because stories are, you know, they're stories, and stories are stories. So, yeah, goodbye.